Hi, Angela here with day 2 of the 14 Days of Christmas with La La Land Crafts. Every day on the La La Land Crafts blog, you will find a new tutorial by a different DT member. Today, I have a fun easel card featuring Winter Wishes Marci rubber stamp and a bunch of the dies from the December release. For this, I have used not only Winter Wishes Marci rubber stamp, I have the Poinsettia Die, I used the Skis die, I used the Lake and the Mountains die, I used the Ski Lodge die, I used the large clock die, and then a few of the older dies that I've used. I used the Stitch Merry, along with the Christmas from the Merry Christmas die. I used the Stitched Nested Circles dies. I used a couple of those. And then I also used Pierced Scalloped Circles. I used the largest of those. So let's get started. Okay, so to start, I'm going to take a piece of cardstock that is 12 inches by 6 inches. I'm going to score at 6 inches and I'm going to score at 3 inches. Once I have done that, I am going to do my creases so that they're nice and tight. Now this particular piece of paper, cardstock that I have, has this tag on it. I don't care. I'm going to cover it up anyway. I'm just going to make that the inside of my card. Okay, so the paper that we are using for this card is the last piece of the new release that I used that I have not shown you yet, and this is the Home for Christmas paper pack. Now, I love all of La La Land Crafts paper. As you can see, I have made my way pretty good through this pack. I just love kind of the vintage country Christmas, could have some shabby chic to it, paper. So what I've done, this is the paper I've used. Now I usually will just take a pouch, various pouches that I use. I think these are ones I use for my stencils, but I will usually just take and put a tag on it so I know what paper it is, and then I will put all of my scraps from a paper pack along with scraps from coordinating papers that I've used on a project in this, and then I know when I'm doing a die cut or I'm doing anything, I want to reach for this first so that if I have something I can use, I'm not going to be using a full piece of paper for a tiny little die cut or a tiny strip or anything like that. So this is the paper we're using. I have gone ahead and done all the die cutting, all the paper cutting for us today. So I've got a piece of brown. Now this is like a, I think it's Crafter's Companion Centura Pearl. I like the sheen to it. This is going to be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 because it's going to go on the inside of our card. And then I've cut a piece of 5 1/2 by 5 1/2 from our paper pack. And I'm going to put it in the middle. So let's go ahead and adhere that. So that we have them inside of our card started. Now you could use any of the patterns you want. There are so many fun patterns that we can use. Okay, so there's the start of the inside of our card. Now we can open it back up. So now we're going to go ahead and start the front. Now I have cut several panels. I have this kind of a, I call it like a vintage blue, vintage teal cardstock. Again, it's Crafter's Companion. It's kind of a pearlescent finish. I have done 3 of these, at 5 1/2 by 2 1/2. no, I'm sorry, 5 3/4 by 2 3/4. I apologize. 5 3/4 by 2 3/4. So those are going to go, the first two are going to go here. Now, I did, on some of this, ink the edges. It's your choice if you want to ink the edges. I ink the edges of a lot of my dies. So for the outside, I probably would ink the edges as well. I have, for this particular one, I used Spectrum Noir Harmony. It's the water reactive ink. I like it for blend or for inking, even if I'm not going to use water. And I just use Seal Brown. And I'm just going to kind of lightly. I like inking because for me, I like the kind of the distressed, the vintage. I tend to like vintage, shabby chic type effects on cards. So then we can do the same with our pattern. I'm just going to ink the edges. So once we've got that done, we can go ahead and we can put our panels on. Let's go ahead and zoom in some more. Try to make sure I zoom in enough. So we will just go ahead and put our panels together. Again, you can use any of the colors or the sides of the paper that you want to use. So again, here's our card front. Let me come out just a little bit. Okay. So now I'm just using a tape runner. Again, you can use any adhesive for this that you want. Now I'm just going to put my panels down. So there you have it. There's the front of our card. Eventually we're going to have some stuff here that's going to allow our easel to stand up like this one does. So let's grab our dies and we'll keep going. Okay, so now for the inside of our card. We started with our panels, our larger ones. Again, we have a 2 3/4 by 5 3/4, and then we have 2.5 by 5.5 pattern. Now again, it's your choice if you want to ink the edges. I did not on this one. I believe I did it on my original, but it's completely your choice how you want to put it together. Okay, so again, we will put those together. Now for this one, for the original, I just placed it in the middle. And we'll just kind of... Now I have gone ahead and I've done all of my die cutting as well as colored up another image. Now for my dies, I not only cut the die, but I also cut it with chipboard. Mama Land Crafts carries some really awesome chipboard. And what I found is I really like layering my cards or my images, my dies, stuff like that, with chipboard. This is just a job ticket holder where I store a lot of my paper. I just have my Lolaland Crafts chipboard. I'll put my scraps in here. I cut all of my dies with the chipboard as well, aside from the poinsettias, just to give it, I really like the look. I noticed that Irina was doing it in some of her videos and classes, and so I decided to try it, and I really like the sturdiness that it gives. So I have, again, gone through all of my dies are layered with the chipboard, and I have gone ahead and inked my dies. So again, this is going to be our main panel. So we are going to take, and we're going to put our scallop circle in the middle. And I'm only putting adhesive up a little over halfway so that when I fold my card up, you can see it like that. Now my ski lodge, I am going to slip kind of behind, just like this. I just want it kind of peeking out. Okay. Now I've got my large clock. I cut it with chipboard and my red cardstock. I cut it with my, what I'm calling kind of a vintage teal paper or cardstock. This is that same pearlescent type cardstock. And then I cut my stitched circle in the largest because I'm going to layer it here and I'm going to put the clock behind it. So we will just place that in the middle. Now I cut the clock in the red and left everything in it. With this color, I popped everything out, all of the numbers, all of these pieces, and I'm going to layer the two together because I want it to show through and just add that extra color. So for this, I'm actually going to use just some liquid glue. I'll just kind of apply around the die. Okay, so we'll line up my numbers, and there you go. So now we want to put the clock on top of my circle. Now you don't necessarily have to do this. I like all the layers. You don't necessarily have to have that circle behind it. Okay, so now to keep going on our clock, I used this stitched nested circle with chipboard, and I also did a pattern. Now you could put this behind it, you could put it in front of it, you don't have to have it. I just kind of liked the layered look. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in the middle of our clock. Okay, so now we have Marci. I've colored her up. She's going to go right here. Now, because we've got several layers of chipboard, half of her is going to need to be popped up with foam tape. The other half is just going to need adhesive. So this side will be foam tape, this side would be adhesive. So what we will do, you can use foam tape, you can use pop dots, dimensionals, anything like that. For this, I'm just going to go ahead and use, since I have it handy on my desk, some foam tape. And if I cut too much, I usually just layer it back down. Try to really watch what I try not to waste too much. Okay. So now, because I want to make sure that she's not sticking to anything else, might have gone up a little too far here, what I will do, I will go ahead and put my adhesive here. And then what I will do, I will open my card and I will go ahead and place her. And as you can see, it did come up a little far with my foam tape. The nice thing about it is I can go ahead and remove it. So there you go. Now we've got Marci. We've got the start of our clock. We will finish the clock in a minute. We've got our Scalloped die. So now we're going to go ahead and move to the inside real quick. Before we put our finishing touches on the front, let's go ahead and go to the inside. So I cut the Mountains die. Again, inked it, chipboarded it. And for our card, we just put it in the middle. So here's our. Now I have found you may want to use liquid ink when, or liquid glue, I mean, when you're doing a die or a chipboard, just because sometimes it's a little thicker and sometimes that liquid ink, sorry, I have ink on my brain, liquid adhesive will hold it better. But for this, I'm just going to go ahead and use my tape runner. We're going to go ahead and put our mountains there. Okay. Next we have the lake. Again, we've done all of the inking to it. And we will go ahead and we'll apply it at the bottom. So there's our lake. Now we have the skis dies cut with pattern paper, again layered with the chipboard. So let's go ahead. One thing I like about using just kind of a tape runner like this, I like to pop in, I think it's from my scrapbook days, I kind of like to pop stuff in, and if it's too adhered, sometimes that makes it harder. So there's my skis. Okay. So now we have from our mountains dies, you'll find these little trees. I popped a couple of trees in between the mountain and the lake. So just put a little adhesive on that, like so. Okay, so now we have our stitched Mary, which is going to go here. And then we have our Christmas, again, layered with chipboard. And it's going to go here. I have an older Pomeranian, and he is snoring just a little bit. So if you hear him, that's my old guy. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and put Mary down. And put our Christmas down. I've just put kind of lightly glued like so. Okay. So now the last piece of the inside of our card is going to be our poinsettia. I absolutely love this new die. I have cut it several times. With my matching cardstock. You'll find these little stitch lines. Now what you can do is you can just kind of lightly bend them, and it's going to give your flower some shape. You can also bend them back and it'll give it shape that way too. I kind of liked it bent in. So I have layered. What we're going to do is we're going to layer several together. And you could use your liquid adhesive. You could use your tape runner, anything you want, glue dots. We're just going to kind of layer them together. I feel like the more layers the merrier on this one. I like having it kind of fluffy. So here's my poinsettia. Now my poinsettia I put here. Poinsettia along with our mountains are what's going to hold the easel card open. Now if you weren't using mountains or anything like that, you could use, I've used enamel dots before to hold it open. You could use a picture, a sentiment. You could use really anything you want. For the poinsettia, you'll have your little center. I just used some coordinating cardstock. It's the same one that I used for my ski lodge. And we're just going to put that in the middle. Okay. And we will just go ahead and place it here. Now this is going to be a thicker card. It's not one necessarily that you're going to put in the mail unless you put it in with, say, a bubble envelope or put it in a gift. But because it is thicker and it is heavier, but I love how it turns out. So there's our inside. Now let's finish the outside. There are a few pieces I ended up not using. This goes to the lake die. It's some ice. You could pop it in here, and you could do really anything you want with it. I did take a couple of trees and put them in front of the ski lodge. And lastly, we want to finish our clock off. Every clock needs to have our hands. So let's go ahead and put our hands down. Again, these are layered with the chipboard. Let's make this one 3 o'clock. Okay. Oops. Okay. So our last thing we want to do to our card, we are going to take, these are just some pearls. You could do pearls, gems, enamel dots, anything you want. I'm just going to take a pearl and I'm going to put it in the very middle. That is the old guy. I'm going to put it in the very middle of my clock. So here we have our pearl, we have our, and when our card opens, you'll have it like that. So now you can stand it up, have a display piece, you can lay it down. We've got room if you want to write here to somebody, you could add something here and write to somebody here. There's where it's shut, and there's where it's open. I really hope you enjoyed this. I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, anything like that. And I hope to see you soon. Bye.